Sophie Cunningham just did what every WNBA player dreams of and every league exec dreads. She got fined, went viral, and turned a $500 slap on the wrist into a $1 million moment, all with a t-shirt. Let's get straight into it. This saga starts the way a lot of modern sports drama does. With a TikTok, Sophie, never one to shy away from saying exactly what's on her mind, posts a short but very spicy video roasting the WNBA's refs. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. We're talking full sarcasm mode, eye rolls, passive-aggressive captions. The works. In any other league, this kind of thing might have slid under the radar. But this is the WNBA, where the refs are basically untouchable, and players calling them out is treated like a felony. So what happened? She got fined. $500. Not exactly devastating, but the message was clear. Pipe down or pay up. But here's the thing. Sophie Cunningham doesn't pipe down. She ramps up. Enter the shirt. Just days after fine, she walks into a nationally televised game. Cameras rolling. Fans watching, wearing a white tee that simply says, "Hot girls eat Arby's." Now what? Why Arby's? What does roast beef have to do with referee slander? That's the magic. It was so random, so absurd, so memeable that it exploded. Within hours, the shirt was all over Twitter, TikTok, Reddit, Instagram fan pages. Arby's themselves jumped into the chat, quote tweeting Sophie like she'd just been knighted into the Fast Food Hall of Fame. But here's what most people miss. This wasn't just a quirky fashion moment. It was calculated, smart, brand genius. Because Sophie didn't just wear that shirt for fun. She made a statement without ever saying a word. That shirt was a clapback. The league tried to punish her for speaking her mind. So she put on a ridiculous shirt, walked into the spotlight, and owned the narrative. You want to find me for being honest? Cool. I'll turn it into content. And content, it was. Her TikTok following exploded, jumping by hundreds of thousands. The original video criticizing the refs passed 1 million views. People who didn't even watch WNBA games were suddenly in love with Sophie Cunningham. Her jersey? Sold out. Her DMs? Full. Brand emails? Ding, ding, ding. And before you knew it, that $500 fine turned into 6 figures in sponsorship potential. Let's pause for a second. That's what we call a power move. Most players would have apologized, posted a Notes app screenshot, maybe issued a dry, "I respect the league's decision" statement. Not Sophie. She doubled down, with humor, with personality, and with complete control of the moment. That's not just rare in the WNBA. That's rare in any league. And now, she's not just a basketball player. She's a brand. And people are noticing. Word on the street is that Jeannie Buss herself, yes, Lakers Jeannie Buss, reached out. Not about a jersey. Not about a shout-out. But about a crossover. Women of wrestling. Entertainment meets athleticism. And apparently, Sophie's got the chops for both. Because when you can go from roasting officials to trending on TikTok to getting scouted for pro wrestling in the span of a week, you're not just an athlete. You're a show. But let's be clear. This story isn't just about one funny shirt or one viral moment. It's about how the WNBA handles players who step outside the lines. And by outside the lines, I don't mean flagrant fouls. I mean having a personality. Because the league wants marketability. They say they want stars. But the moment a player speaks up, gets a little cheeky online, suddenly it's all fines and policy violations. Sophie Cunningham exposed that contradiction. She said what a lot of players are thinking, that the refs are inconsistent, and the officiating this season has been flat-out messy. And instead of addressing concern, the league went for optics. Silence the player. Protect the image. Move on. But Sophie didn't move on. She made that the headline. And now the league has a different problem. They tried to bury a moment, and instead they created a monster. A marketing monster. Think about it. Since this whole thing blew up, Sophie's become one of the most talked about players in the WNBA. Her TikToks are hitting numbers usually reserved for Olympic gymnasts and K-pop idols. Every post, a hit. Every outfit, screenshotted. Every moment on camera, an opportunity. And it's not just hype. She's backing up on the court. Sophie's averaging career highs in points, efficiency, and three-point shooting. She's diving for loose balls, taking charges, jawing with opponents, playing the kind of basketball that turns heads and wins hearts, and doing it all with a smirk. That's what makes her dangerous, not just to defenders, but to the entire system. Because when a player like Sophie Cunningham figures out how to play the game and play the game behind the game, the league can't control the narrative anymore. She is a narrative. And that's scary for a league that's still figuring out how to handle this new wave of players who aren't afraid to speak, tweet, post, or joke. Players like Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, Eriko Gunbowl, and now Sophie Cunningham. It's not enough to be great anymore. You have to be seen. And Sophie gets it. She's building something bigger than a highlight reel. She's building a voice, a vibe, a fan base that follows her, not just a box score. That's why brands are lining up. That's why jersey sales spike. That's why Arby's is probably printing those shirts in bulk right now. Because Sophie's not just hot on the court. She's hot in the algorithm. So, sure, she paid $500. But what she got in return? National exposure, brand recognition, an invitation to wrestle, and the kind of clout you can't fake. You can't teach that. You can't plan that. You can only be that. And Sophie, she's that. The league may not have intended to make her a star, but they did, and all she had to do was be herself. No script, no apologies, no filters, just one shirt, and a whole lot of nerve. So next time the WNBA tries to fine her into silence, they might want to think twice. Because with Sophie Cunningham, every fine is just another investment in her spotlight. And from where we're sitting, she's only getting started. And here's what's wild. All of this, the fine, the Arby shirt, the TikTok explosion, happened because Sophie dared to do the one thing leagues hate more than losing control. She acted like a star. Not a mascot, not a model citizen, not a carefully coached PR puppet. A real, complex, bold, wildly entertaining star. And for the WNBA, that's new territory. Because for decades, this league has walked a tightrope between wanting attention and fearing what that attention might bring. They promoted a game with words like authentic and humble. Great values, no question. But in a media environment that eats personality for breakfast, that careful, quiet branding just doesn't hit the same. And Sophie, she's blowing that model to pieces. She's not asking for permission. She's building her own audience. She's not waiting for the league to figure out how to market her. She is the marketing. That's why this matters. This isn't just about a funny shirt or a viral TikTok. It's about power. Because when players start realizing they don't need the league's marketing department to become stars, the balance shifts. Suddenly, players like Sophie Cunningham have leverage. And leverage changes everything. Sponsorships, negotiations, media deals, player influence in league decisions. When you got 1.7 million followers hanging on your every post, you're no longer just a jersey number. You're a media outlet in your own right. That's the new era, the post-viral athlete. And Sophie is one of the first WNBA players to fully step into that role. And you can bet others are watching. You think Angel Reese didn't take notes when Sophie flipped a fine into a fashion moment? You think Caitlin Clark isn't paying attention to how Sophie owns her voice, unfiltered and unapologetic? This is how movements start, not with massive coordinated campaigns, but with one person stepping out of line and showing everyone else the line was imaginary to begin with. Of course, the league's response to all this has been mixed. They fined her. Sure, that's the policy. But beyond that, crickets. No public support, no commentary, no clever pivot to embrace the moment. And that silence speaks volumes. It says the WNBA still doesn't quite know how to handle stars who operate outside the system. Stars who don't stick to the script. Stars who don't need the league to go viral. Stars who know their worth and know how to sell it. That's what Sophie represents now. She's not just a guard. She's not just a spark plug off the bench. She's a case study. She's proof that in the WNBA, where salaries are still shockingly low and marketing dollars are spread thin, a little personality can go a long way. $500 fine? That's a drop in the bucket, especially when the return is headlines, engagement, and a newfound role as the league's unofficial chaos queen. But don't get it twisted. This wasn't chaos for chaos' sake. This was controlled fire. And Sophie lit the match on purpose. She knew what she was doing. She knew that posting a TikTok slamming officiating wasn't going to win her any favors with the league office. She knew that wearing an Arby's shirt was going to get screenshots. She knew that by refusing to shrink herself, she'd probably ruffle feathers. And she did it anyway, because what's the alternative? Sit quietly? Wait for the league to notice her? Hope someone puts her in a commercial? No thanks. Sophie took the fast lane. She took her moment and made it impossible to ignore. And that's exactly what the WNBA needs, even if they don't know it yet. See, every major league in history has had a player like this. Someone who ruffled feathers, broke protocol, and changed everything. The NBA had Dennis Rodman. The NFL had Marshawn Lynch. The NHL had PK Subban. And now the WNBA has Sophie Cunningham. Maybe not in the same outrageous fashion, but in the same spirit. Players who turn personality into power and force their leagues to evolve or get left behind. Because that's what this moment is really about, evolution. The WNBA can't afford to play small anymore. Not when the players are already thinking big. Not when the audience is showing up. Not when ESPN ratings are climbing. Not when celebrity fans are sitting courtside. Not when a single TikTok can launch a jersey into backorder for weeks. This isn't a league waiting to break through. It's a league mid-breakthrough, and the players know it, especially Sophie. She's not a role player anymore. She's not just a name on the stat sheet. She's a force, a personality, a walking reminder that sometimes the most valuable thing you can bring to the court is a little heat. And yeah, that might make some people uncomfortable. League execs, opposing fans, maybe even a few teammates. But the truth is, leagues don't grow by keeping everyone comfortable. They grow by leaning into the fire. And right now, Sophie Cunningham is a fire. If anyone's still underestimating Sophie Cunningham after all this, they haven't been paying attention. Because what she pulled off isn't just a branding win, it's a blueprint. She showed every athlete, especially in women's sports, how to own the narrative when the system tries to write you off. And she did it without a marketing team, without a PR machine, without a corporate sanitized version of her story. She did it with one TikTok, one t-shirt, and a whole lot of nerve. Now, Arby's is reportedly eyeing a long-term endorsement. Other fast food brands are watching her engagement numbers like hawks. And her jerseys? Sold out. Again. But let's be real, this wasn't just luck. This was intentional chaos. Sophie didn't just respond to a fine. She created a cultural moment. She turned a disciplinary action into a business opportunity. And in doing so, she exposed a bigger truth. The WNBA can't afford to police personality anymore. Not when players like Sophie Cunningham are bringing in more attention than entire ad campaigns. Not when their most viral moments are coming from players, not press conferences. And not when that attention actually translates into revenue. Because here's the thing the league's still figuring out. Players are the product. And when they go viral, the league wins too. Every retweet of that Arby shirt, it wasn't just Sophie winning. It was WNBA team logos showing up on timelines that never talk about women's basketball. It was fans discovering the Fever's schedule because they wanted to see what she'd do next. It was curiosity turning into clicks, then into streams, then into ticket sales. And all of that came from one player deciding to clap back with style. So let's talk about that style for a second, because the Hot Girls Eat Arby's shirt wasn't random. It was genius. It was absurd, hilarious, completely out of left field, and perfectly timed. She knew it would be a meme before she even stepped into the tunnel. She counted on it. That's what separates athletes from entertainers. Sophie is both, and the cross-industry attention proves it. After her viral moment, she reportedly caught the eye of Jeannie Buss, who extended an invite to the women of wrestling organization WOW. Suddenly, Sophie isn't just a basketball name. She's got crossover potential. You think that a fluke? Please. The WWE has been courting athletes like this for decades. And Sophie's got the exact mix they look for: athleticism, attitude, and an ability to connect with a crowd. So yeah, she might not be done with the WNBA. But now, she doesn't have to be only a WNBA player. That's the game changer. Because athletes like Sophie Cunningham are proving something really important. Personality is power. You don't have to score 30 a night to be a draw. You just have to matter. You have to stand for something. Say something. Be someone. And Sophie, she's become someone the league can't ignore. Even if they wanted to. The WNBA has a decision to make now. They can keep handing out fines and pretending these moments are inconveniences. Or they can recognize what's really happening. The league is evolving, with or without them. Players are becoming their own brands, their own media outlets, their own agents of chaos. And fans love it. The question is whether the WNBA will lean into that energy or keep trying to tone it down. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. If the league can't handle personalities like Sophie Cunningham now, they're going to really struggle when 5 more show up next season. And they will, because the next generation, they're watching. They're watching how the league treats Sophie. They're watching how fans respond. They're watching what gets rewarded and what gets punished. And right now, what they're seeing is this. If you're bold enough, loud enough, and smart enough to turn a fine into a fashion statement, you don't get sidelined. You get famous. That's the Sophie effect. She didn't just break the rules. She rewrote them. She didn't just clap back. She cashed in. She didn't just go viral. She went iconic. And now, she's not waiting for the league to catch up. She's running the playbook on her own terms. Unapologetic, unfiltered, unstoppable. Sophie Cunningham isn't just a basketball player anymore. She's a movement. And honestly, the WNBA might want to keep up before she turns a whole league into her next viral stunt. Sophie Cunningham didn't ask to be the face of disruption in the WNBA, but that's exactly what she became. And whether the league is ready or not, that spotlight isn't going anywhere. Because Sophie's rise isn't just about one viral shirt, one clapback, or one controversial fine. It's about finally watching a player in women's basketball grab the mic and refuse to put down. Let's be honest, the WNBA has never been short on talent. From Lisa Leslie to Diana Taurasi, from Candace Parker to Aya Wilson, there have always been legends in the making. But there's something different happening now. This new wave of stars, they're not just athletes, they're personalities. And Sophie, she might be the most unfiltered one of all. The irony? The very thing that got her fined, speaking out about poor officiating on TikTok, is what launched her into another stratosphere. But it didn't happen in a vacuum. Fans were ready for someone to break the mold, to ditch the press-trained responses, to say what everyone else had been tiptoeing around. The refs? Inconsistent. The league discipline? Questionable. The PR image? Overmanaged. Sophie Cunningham said the quiet part out loud. And when she did, millions listened. What makes this even more interesting is how calculated it's become without ever feeling fake. Sophie's not out here doing this for clout. She's not trying to manufacture controversy. She's just being herself, loud, opinionated, confrontational when necessary, and absolutely unapologetic about it. That's rare, and that's why she resonates. Most players get fined and go silent. Sophie got fined and went full marketing genius. That "Hot Girls Eat Arby's" shirt wasn't just a meme, it was a manifesto. It said, "I'm going to do me, no matter how weird, chaotic, or off-brand you think it is." And somehow, that became a brand. From there, everything snowballed. More TikTok posts, more fan-made memes, fans making their own knockoff "Hot Girls Eat Arby's" merch. Some even showed up to games wearing the same shirt in solidarity. And with each post, each photo, each clip, the numbers grew. What started as a $500 disciplinary action turned into millions of impressions. National brands took notice. Arby's leaned in with a tongue-in-cheek campaign. Smaller streetwear companies slid into her DMs. Even beverage companies started sending her promo packs, hoping she'd casually feature them in a video. And that's where the Sophie effect hit maximum velocity. Because this wasn't just a one-time fluke. This wasn't a flash in the pan. This was a fully baked ecosystem of influence, cultivated by one woman, who decided to be louder than the league wanted her to be. And it's working. Behind the scenes, league executives are scrambling to figure out how to replicate this energy without losing control of the messaging. But you can't control Sophie Cunningham. That's the point. She's created a space where other players now feel a little bolder, a little braver, and a little more ready to lean into who they really are, not who the league tells them to be. And that's a cultural shift the WNBA can't afford to ignore. Let's zoom out for a second. We're in the middle of a media revolution. Athletes aren't just athletes anymore. They're brands, influencers, entrepreneurs, cultural voices. The NBA's had this figured out for years. LeBron James has his own media empire. Kevin Durant has a venture capital firm. Even rookies are coming into the league with production companies and multi-platform deals. And the WNBA? It's just now starting to tap into that. Caitlin Clark brought record viewership. Angel Reese brought a tidal wave of social media engagement. And now Sophie Cunningham? She's bringing attitude, the kind that sells seats, merchandise, and headlines. That's what makes her rise so dangerous, not in a bad way, but in a why didn't we capitalize on this sooner way. Because she's proving something the WNBA has long struggled to balance. You can be a skilled athlete and an unfiltered personality. You don't have to water yourself down to be marketable. In fact, that hurts your marketability. Sophie isn't famous in spite of her chaos. She's famous because of it. And now, she's not just a player on a team. She's an entertainment brand. Let's not gloss over how hard that is to pull off. Most athletes spend years trying to manufacture authenticity. Sophie Cunningham radiates it effortlessly. You believe her when she claps back. You believe her when she laughs at a fine. You believe her when she says she's not backing down. That belief? That's priceless. And now, it's opening doors no one saw coming. Let's talk about the crossover into wrestling. Women of Wrestling, wow, didn't offer her a cameo for no reason. They saw what she brings to the court, not just in skill, but in presence. That's exactly what pro wrestling feeds off of. A loud mouth, a defiant attitude, and an unshakable belief in your own hype. That's a storyline, baby. If Sophie ever laced up boots instead of sneakers, the arena would go wild. She's got the charisma, the drama, the entrance music potential. But here's the twist. She doesn't even need to make the jump. Just being invited is a win. It signals that she's more than just an athlete. She's entertainment property now. That opens up endorsement deals, licensing opportunities, even podcast hosting gigs. People want to hear her talk. They want to see her react. They want Sophie, uncensored, unfiltered, on every platform they can get her on. And let's not forget how she's impacting inside the league. You think younger players aren't taking notes? You think college stars getting ready for the WNBA draft aren't seeing what Sophie did with one fine and thinking, maybe I don't need to keep my head down? Because that's what she's really done. She's changed what's allowed. And the WNBA needs to get with the program or get left behind. Because the league doesn't just need talent. It needs characters. Not manufactured. Disney Channel-style characters. Real ones. Players with opinions. With stories. With edge. Because that's what sells. That's what builds loyalty. That's what grows the game. And right now, no one's doing it better than Sophie Cunningham. She's not the top scorer in the league. She's not the MVP frontrunner. She's not even the most talked about rookie. But she's the one you remember, the one you quote, the one who turned a fine into a movement and a shirt into a legacy. And that, more than anything, proves she's not just part of the league's present. She's shaping its future.